So with E3 coming up next week, aside from lots of games hopefully that's going to be revealed, you can also bet that there's going to be a lot of talk regarding virtual reality. And you got to remember that there's really three main players as far as I'm concerned that are all trying to steal the same crowd, and it may already be a small crowd, but you're going to have three big players going after that same group. You've got Oculus Rift, you've got Valve's VR system, and then you've got Sony's Project Morpheus. So we'll begin with Valve's VR system. It's launching this year around Christmas time, they say. So they're going to be the first out of the gate, which is going to give them a little bit of a boost. And then everybody knows that Steam is a huge player with the PC crowd. They've got about 90% of it on lockdown currently. And so it's obviously a large base for developers to take advantage of. And then also, Valve's system is incorporating lasers that they say is going to allow more movement versus Oculus or Morpheus. Now, granted, I don't know how much movement and how much walking you want to do around your house when your vision is impaired, but they do claim their goal is to allow more freedom with the system and also to get it at zero motion sickness so that nobody experiences nauseousness or you know, that vomit feeling whenever they're playing. So they say that that's a top priority for them, and they say that they are going to be able to deliver that. So we'll see how that goes. And then you've got Oculus, which is probably the most talked about VR headset. Got a huge backer, which is Facebook, who's dumping a ton of money into it. And then it's also going to be open sourced. So that means you're going to have a lot more content on it. And that goes for both Valve and Oculus, I would assume, since they're both on the PC. And that also means that there's no limit on the type of content that you can get. It's going to be unfiltered for the most part. And because they're both on the PC, that means that people who have high-end rigs, who invest into their systems, who want to upgrade or whatever, they're going to be able to take advantage of these systems and have better looking and performing games versus the consoles. And you may have also heard about this week that Oculus and Microsoft have formed a partnership, so we're probably going to also be hearing more about that at E3 next week. But to be honest, we don't really know exactly what that means, how far this is going to go. They demoed being able to stream your Xbox One games to Oculus, but they were streaming it to like this virtual room. So like you're in your room with this headset on, but in the headset you're seeing a virtual room with like a theater screen in front of you. So I mean, I guess I could understand why some people would want to play on like a huge theater screen and make it look like you've got a, you know, 100-inch TV in front of you, but I cannot see anybody going out and buying an Xbox One for that feature. Now, what it could also mean is that in the future you have Xbox One games that are on PC that also support Oculus. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if you have Forza or Halo or whatever else that you're able to play with Oculus using VR. But right now the details are just so slim, it's really bad just to even, you know, think about that because we don't know where it's going to go. But I honestly felt that the demo that they did show off, like of their capabilities, was a little weird, and I think it definitely fell flat. But we do know that Oculus is going to be coming packaged with an Xbox One controller, and that Microsoft has stated that this allows them to be part of the VR space while still being able to focus on HoloLens, which of course is their AR technology. And so basically they're going to still focus on HoloLens, but they're also now in the VR space by being able to form this partnership with Oculus. So that leaves Sony's Project Morpheus. Now, we are hearing that Sony is planning on making a big push at E3 with Morpheus. VR Focus put out a story the other day claiming that they have sources close to Sony who say that during their press conference they're going to be making a big push with Morpheus, and also that they plan on devoting half of their E3 booth to the technology. But the advantages that I just mentioned about the other systems are really the shortcomings of Morpheus, because one, it's a closed system, so that means you're going to have less content for it. It also means that it's going to be more filtered content. And also, because it's a console, it may also not deliver the best quality content. And, you know, we already see with regular games that in some instances, Witcher 3 for example lately, the PS4 has trouble maintaining a steady 1080p, even 30 frames per second. So being able to display, you know, higher than 60 frames per second on two dual screens at the same time, we don't know how well that's going to work out or how dumbed down the graphics are going to be in order to achieve that. And so the other question that remains is, how much is it going to be supported long term? Because if you've been following PlayStation for a while, you know that some devices don't always get the best support long term. PS Move never received much support. The Vita currently has a software problem. And with some gamers upset at the lack of AAA exclusives on the PS4 right now, they may not be ready to go jump on and throw down a lot more money in order to get another accessory, with them not knowing how many more games are going to come after the initial launch. But PlayStation no doubt does have a strong install base with 20 million consoles sold. But I mean, if you look at Steam's numbers, for instance, they've got 125 million active users currently. So PC definitely has the advantage when it comes to this space. And you know, I've mentioned plenty of times before, whether you're talking about Sony or Oculus or Valve's VR, I'm kind of skeptical of VR just in general. And I mean, I could be completely wrong, but the major problems I see with the technology is, number one, you're going to have good software, good games, good experiences, and they're going to have to be built with this in mind to, I think, really deliver experiences that make this worth buying. And then two, how big is the motion sickness problem going to be for people, and also being tethered to your system, not being able to have a whole lot of motion. And then three, you've got the price point. We don't really know the prices of any of these devices yet. So I don't think you're going to find one in the bargain bin anytime soon. So that's going to be a big deciding factor. And then four, you've got the long-term effects. You know, I was watching a talk years ago from, I believe it was an MIT professor who was working with Microsoft on virtual reality. And they mentioned at the time that Microsoft wanted to ditch VR and went with AR because of a few different items. One being the motion sickness that I talked about, but also they claimed that it literally rewired your brain. Now, I don't know what he meant by that, and I wish some journalist would ask Microsoft about that and ask them why, you know, an MIT professor or whoever said that at that point, but now they're ready to jump onto it now. But nobody also really knows the long-term effect of this, if it will affect your eyesight in any sort of way, having that so close to your eyes, and also what's going to be the long-term effects on like your neck or your back. And then five, which is, I think, probably the biggest, you know, kind of negative as far as this is concerned, is it's probably the most antisocial of devices. Your head is covered, your vision, your hearing is impaired, and a lot of people do not want that. A lot of people don't like the idea of wearing something extra on their head. You know, Google Glass recently came out. That didn't really go over. 3D, I don't think, became a next big, huge thing, in part because people didn't want to wear a pair of glasses while watching TV. I know, for instance, at my parents, they have a 3D TV, and, you know, we watch 3D movies sometimes, and I mean, by the end of a 2-hour movie, I am so ready to get rid of that off my face. And a lot of times it ends up giving me a headache just having it there. So you also, you know, have parents who have to keep an eye on their children, and it takes you away from everybody else who's in the room with you. So, I mean, it's definitely, it doesn't come across as a very social experience, you know, and a lot of times games are kind of marketed as this social experience. You know, everybody's in the living room kind of gathered around watching everybody play or take turns or whatever. So, I mean, I do definitely think it could be big for a group of enthusiast gamers, and, you know, it might be a pretty decent niche, but I'm just not sure that the mass appeal is going to be there for the casual gamers. And I know a lot of people are going to have their panties in a wad because they feel like I'm picking on Sony and, you know, I'm just dissing Project Morpheus just because it's Sony, blah, blah, blah. But I would encourage you to, if you want to debate, let's debate the facts that I just laid out. and attempt to stay on topic rather than, resorting to your ad hominems. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where Sony's Project Morpheus has an advantage over Oculus Rift or over Valve's VR, because I would like to know. And, I mean, I could be completely wrong. Sony may deliver the first-party content that everybody needs Project Morpheus for instead of Oculus or whoever else. And, maybe I'm completely wrong on VR just in general. Maybe it turns out to be something like TVs and cell phones and microwaves where every household has to have a pair. But currently, I'm just having trouble seeing it right now. I do look forward to what all these companies, including Sony, has to share and offer next week. And, I may even be sold on the idea and attempt to pick up one for myself. But for right now, place me in the skeptical category. So post below, let me know what are your thoughts on VR, and do you agree that out of the biggest 3 players in the VR space, that Sony has the biggest hill to climb? That does it for me, the Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.